Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for coming out. It's an interesting day today. We're blessed to be throbbing with blood in our veins, and we're here to honor and launch the writings of our great friend Alan Willis, his nom de plume, John Allen. He's a dear friend of the Media Center. Over the years, Ishmael Reed, our friend, is here as well. We're here with Paul Kalo Blake, myself, Mel Vapour, the Tamale twins, Taylor Weller, Angelina Swan Clark, Aisha Swan, and so we're reveling in the publication of The Other America, and this was a birthing experience. Mr. Willis, Alan, was a incredible civil rights pioneer on a lot of levels, and he's primarily known for his films and 12 or 15 films that have become somewhat iconographic. And his writings were always suppressed because he was writing for a very small publication out of Chicago called News and Letters. And it was a Marxist humanist publication, and he brought me a couple of copies of News and Letters back in the 80s, and I was just astounded by his writing style. And it encompassed sort of something that was really refreshing, and it had a historical insight to it, and I thought it was really brilliant, and it was a great read. And I always said to him that I'd like to, do something with it. And as the years went on, he always castigated himself for having small books, because his books were always sort of like, 5.5 by 8.5. So I made a promise to him that someday we would do a big book, okay? And here it is. So what we did was we took all of his writings from the years 1970 through 1999, and that was no easy task, because the volumes of these columns were all hardbound on newsprint, which was yellowing, and because they were hardbound, we couldn't read part of it. So it took a good 6 to 7 years to transcribe each of these articles, and it was really worth the effort. We went through probably about 10 different transcribers and a lot of digital files, and finally we birthed it this year. Included in it is the DVD of The Other America, which is a 49-minute documentation of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech at Stanford University on April 14th, 1967. Alan was there filming it with his Oricon camera, and it's a single camera black and white documentation, but I think, and also we have an introduction and description of the film by Ishmael Reed, which he wrote back in
It's the most prophetic speech that King ever made, that speech, because he predicts the rise of the right.
Martin Luther King Jr.'s White Backlash speech is a classic. It reveals King, the intellectual, coolly analyzing the racist bias of the neoconservative philosophies that would influence government policies on the right and left, and bought media opinion of the 80s and 90s. He foresees the rise of Reaganism and the mainstreaming of the Klan, neo-Nazism, and yuppie solipsism. It's a chilling, troubling speech made with a background of urban riots, pleas for black power in the Vietnam War. Alan Willis's production of this speech given at Stanford University on April 14, 1967 is a masterful and riveting piece. Future historians will regard this as one of the key speeches in the career of the greatest American statesman of the 20th century, Ishmael Reed, 1989. In 2007, we got the idea to do a 40-year anniversary of the King's speech. And we contacted Stanford, and Stanford opened their arms up to us. So we decided to project the speech that King gave in Memorial Auditorium, and we did this event in Memorial Auditorium, and we partnered with the Aurora Forum down at Stanford, and we also presented on behalf of Stanford and the Media Center this award to Alan. I think he was about 92 at that time. And it was an amazing event because the Aurora Forum was able to get Bernard Lafayette, Dr. Bernard Lafayette, who was one of King's right-hand lieutenants during the Chicago Push movement in '66 and '7. And incidentally, we just screened a film at the last film festival called Leaving Selma by Andrew Young. And lo and behold, Bernard Lafayette is in it because he played a very important part in the Selma March. And also Thomas Black, I believe, who wrote a book on King called Economic Justice and Social Justice. After we screened the film, we gave Willis the award, and then we did the symposium discussing the film, the impact of King's vision and the like. And incidentally, if you go to the Media Center website, eastbaymediacenter.com, link to the Alan Willis Archives page, and if you scroll down, there'll be a link to the Stanford site in which you can see the entire event, including some of the comments, and LaDoris Cordell, one of the professors giving Willis the award, and some of Bernard Lafayette's comments to Alan Willis. What I thought we could do today is perhaps discuss just a brief amount, because we don't have too much time. I know Ishmael has some appointments and whatnot, and we do want to screen 2 films as well. And these are, normally we would screen The Other America, but today we decided to go back into the 50s with one of his very first seminal films that he shot in the old Hunters Point dump, as he called it. And he did a collaboration with the great beat poet and author and founder of City Lights Books, Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Ferlinghetti does the soundtrack. He wrote a poem called Have You Sold Your Dozen Roses after he saw Willis's black and white film. And we consider it one of Willis's greatest experimental films. The second film that we would screen is the Psychedelic Experience. Alan collaborated with Jean Millet on that particular film. It was one of the very first films that ever dealt with the ingestion of LSD. He started making the film in 1963 and '64. This is sort of before the hippie invasion in '66 and '7. And speaking of which, Alan also filmed The Death of Hippie back in '67, back in the Haight-Ashbury, when he filmed the Diggers as they were carrying a casket which represented hippie. And there's something about Willis's work, and we'll screen the Psychedelic Experience, which also has an introduction by Timothy Leary, and it has an original soundtrack by Ravi Shankar, who did the film score for the piece. And it was broadcast in '65 with WGN here in San Francisco, and it won the SF International Film Festival award, the Zellerbach Award in 1965. There's something about Willis's work that is still sort of commanding today, his films, and we're hoping that his writings will also share that podium of his work. Last year, we were invited to be part of the Hippie Modernism exhibit at the Walker Art Center, and in it they wanted the Death of Hippie film, which they played on a loop. And the Hippie Modernism show is a phenomenal exhibit, and it's going to be coming to the new UC Art Museum here down on Addison Center in February of 2017, and I really urge you to see the show. It's an amazing insight into that phenomena of hippie and the like. And 2 years ago, the Psychedelic Experience was also shown at the Brisbane International Film Festival, which is, it actually is larger than the SF International Film Festival. I had no idea it was that large of a festival. And they were extremely kind and generous, and were just thrilled to be having Willis's film there. So his work still has this this draw internationally now, and it was a labor of love to do this. But I think that the the outcome and outpouring of the book is to give an insight, and it's sort of a historical time capsule of these decades. And naturally from a sort of Marxist perspective, humanist perspective, but it's not really proselytizing with a political agenda. He definitely has an agenda, but it's not like listening to a Trotskyite, for lack of a better term. I thought what we might want to consider doing is maybe reading some of it, if people are interested in reading something. Mr. Reed, would you have an interest in reading a paragraph?
Well, I think I'll yield to the young people here.
Okay. Right on.
Let them read. We did a short film with Alan, and to show how contemporary that is, it was shown in Mazel's Center, two brothers.
Mazel brothers, yeah.
Mazel brothers. One of them died last year. In 2015, we showed it in Harlem at the Mazel's video center, or film center that he created up there. Got
There?
a good response.
Was it there?
Yeah. No. It was.
Which one was that?
The only language she knows.
Ah.
The dialogue between two generations, the mother, Chinese American mother, and Chinese
Oh,
American.
right. The one that Carlo directed.
Yeah, Jim Lynn. Jim
Right.
Lynn is now the poet laureate SF Jazz Festival. Very famous Chinese American writer.
And in addition, Alan collaborated with Ishmael, and they made the film called There, and which we screened about a half a year ago. And an incredible short film, A Day in the Life of Mr. Reed, and that has such a contemporary feel to it even today.
Absolutely. My hero's black.
But and also, for whatever it's worth, it was one of the most intense Q&As after that film that I've ever experienced, and doing this for about 40 or 50 years. So, and we should screen that again. Ms. Swan, would you be up for reading your paragraph? You want to come up here and read it? Or two, paragraph or 2 or 3? For the camera, Angelina Swan Clark from Berkeley High.
The title of this paragraph is called Black Leadership Roles. These demands by Black students are not easily accepted by the vast majority of white students who view the war and American racism as separate entities, to be taken one at a time. Some hostility has arisen from white students whenever Black students raise these demands. At some protest meetings, the leaders of the Black Student Union have been booed when they raise these issues. Black students, who from a small minority of the small student body at the University of California, have influence far beyond their numbers and generally have assumed leadership of Asian and other minority students. To what extent they can influence the adoption of a more complete opposition to the war will be revealed in the coming weeks as the movement fell apart.
Very good.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Ms. Weller, did you want to read something?
Yes.
That's very timely,
Thank you, Dick.
because there's now a big fight over ethnic studies. Should ethnic studies be continued? And in Arizona, I think they've eliminated ethnic studies in Arizona.
Yeah. For the camera, for the record, this momentous day, Taylor Weller, intern at East Bay Media Center and student at Berkeley High.
So this is called Leaders versus Black Masses. Several weeks ago, a play called Wine in the Wilderness was presented by the National Educational Television Network as part of their series on being Black. This play dealt with the conflict of values between a working-class black woman from the ghetto and her new boyfriend, a college-educated artist. The woman called Tommy, named by her father Tamara Marie, is played by Miss Abby Lincoln, best friended by an elderly wino who finds her on the street just after a ghetto riot has burned her apartment. So is brought to the flat of a black artist who also befriends her, as do his guests, a young black intellectual and his very wit girlfriend. Miss Lincoln is experienced in ghetto survival and expresses her disgust and bitterness of what the brothers have done to her apartment and few possessions. Her newfound friends are very hip to black consciousness and black history.
Thank you.
Very good.
Aisha? For the camera, for the record, this momentous day, Aisha Swan.
Thank you for having me.
Sure, my pleasure.
In reading his writings from his book, he seems to cover a lot of different subjects, and through the history of time you can see and you make connections. One that really struck me was about the Solidarity brothers, specifically George Jackson. And in relating to this, working with Oakland Jericho and Solidarity Community, which lived on the team, it really struck a chord. He said, in turning this month's black-red column over to two members of the Solidarity brothers, Ms. Georgia Jackson, the mother of George Jackson, and Ms. Inez Williams, mother of Rita Drumgo. Both mothers are appealing for people to attend the trial of the two remaining Solidarity brothers as observers, in the hope of thwarting any miscarriage of justice. Public attendance at a recent pre-trial hearing has fallen off drastically because of the unkempt atmosphere of the courtroom and the humiliating search procedures which the police conduct on each person entering the courtroom. Two, there is the ever-present threat of violence from the heavily armed police at this latest sign of disturbance from any distraught spectator, as was so brutally demonstrated several weeks ago. John Hanna. Reflecting upon his reading and the case, George Jackson, who was convicted of robbery of $70 at the gas station and ended up spending his entire life in prison and eventually executed. And then we have here his rating on America's prison situation. And he says, from a start, the Get Tough on crime policy was a political backland against the legal victories won by the civil rights movement. The white supremacy ideologies seized upon the crimes committed by the so-called urban black underclass to demonize them and bury the real issues of African American freedom. Thus, they literally use the social problems of the permanently and partially unemployed section of the black working class, a class no longer needed in the process of capitalist production, to create a retrogressive white political opposition. And that's just a portion of what he has said. Comparing this and going back to 1971 with the George Johnson case, to me it's very apparent that the problem we have today with mass incarceration, especially of black people, people of color, and the increase in police brutality and militarization of the police goes back to what he was saying. Specifically that it's just a backlash against the civil rights movement and its women's. I think that this needs further introspection and further examination as we head into the 2016 elections, where there are various candidates proposing what they are going to do about mass incarceration and racism in this country. With the Black Lives Matter movement, stepping forward, and other revolutionary groups as well.
In October, end of October, early November, we're going to be screening a film called The Return. Mm-hmm. And it's the incredible impact of people that have been incarcerated, primarily minorities, in the federal and state prisons in California, and how it's impacted their families and whatnot. It just, we've been documenting the making of the film. They would come in about 4 or 5 times in the last year to do focus groups as the film was starting to be edited and whatnot. And it was an amazing birthing process just watching these 2 women produce this film. And it paid off. It just won the Tribeca Film Festival Award for documentary, and it won one of the awards at the SF International Film Festival about 3 weeks ago. So we're going to be screening it here end of October. It's one of the official selections of the Berkeley Film Festival. So I think it's worth a look. Thank you. So much. Where do we go from here? Ishmael, any comments?
Yeah, I think all of you were very impressive. I'd like to see this shown in Berkeley High School. Some of Alan Willis's work, because the kind of journalism is missing. I mean, you could call him an artist, but he's also a journalist.
Exactly.
And this is kind of point of view that's missing. I got a piece coming out about how 6 families own the majority of broadcast and print media. This is how Donald Trump got over. Got $2 billion worth of free publicity from the networks because he brought in money. As a matter of fact, the head of the CBS said that. He said it may be bad for democracy, but it's bringing us money.
Good for business.
So, Alan Willis is people like I.F. Stone, some of the people who were journalists around when I was growing up. Edward R. Murrow. I was a kid and I saw Edward R. Murrow take John McCarthy,
That's right.
destroy him. A very cool, I'll never forget this, a very cool recitation that just destroyed him. And people don't realize this, or I remember this, that Eisenhower, the president, did the rest because McCarthy called his mentor, George Marshall, for Congress. Next thing I know, McCarthy's coffin is heading out of Washington. But Murrow started it. And that kind of stuff, you got these pretty boys, pretty girls, I call them bimbos, which is not a good expression, but I pair that with himbos. You got bimbos and himbos, giving us all the news. I had Al Jazeera, because now like a curtain has been closed over, an American public, informational curtain on the American public, which is low informational already in the first place. I don't want to call them stupid like Bill Maher, but they make bad choices because not privy to all the information that comes out. Al Jazeera at least covered events happening in other parts of the world. On Al Jazeera, you saw Africans in parliament, you saw African intellectuals, Indian intellectuals, speaking about conditions in their country, without somebody in the green room in New York, eating free donuts and coffee, and just getting a topic within 2 minutes, he's supposed to be an expert. So that's what I think about Alan Willis.
What are your thoughts on these 6 conglomerate media corporations, which obviously have tentacles going all the way down that filter down for other media, radio, newspaper outlets? What is your thoughts on them controlling the masses for putting out what media and what information they want people in America to know?
Well, the mastermind behind this is Roger Ailes. Now, he felt that there are a lot of suckers out there who could be manipulated. I heard somebody on KPFA talk about Roger Ailes, and they'd done a documentary. They left out the fact that he was hit behind the Willie Horton campaign, where they had this black prisoner, and they used him, according to Willie, the mayor of San Francisco, percentage of votes, percentage of whites in the South, after that ad, increased 20%. against Dukakis. That ad lost Dukakis the election. But Roger Ailes comes out of that and now runs Fox News, he and Murdoch. And they just feed these people, you know, like give them what I call racism, intellectual alcohol. That's what they give them. And that's why we got Trump, because Trump, if you hear Trump, he studied all the talking points of Fox. That's where he's coming from. Immigration, racism, Muslim, all that stuff comes out of Fox. So now they want to take over social media. I mean, social media was for a while counteracting all this stuff, right?
Amen.
Now they're saying YouTube, or not YouTube, but Facebook is too left. So now they're trying to move. Now they're trying to intimidate the people who run social. And the head of Zuckerberg, who's head of, is he the head of Facebook? He had to meet with them. He capitulated.
He's a right-wing guy.
He capitulated right away.
He backed George W. Bush.
So that's the condition we have now, where they're scaring the so-called white working class, stereotyping the white working class into voting for this guy who's a nigga, you know, who's something's wrong with him. Something's wrong with him, like the way he responds to things. You know, like Hillary Clinton said, you know, what happens if he has more than his Twitter account? And he has the entire arsenal of the United States government and the United States available. So that's why I say white supremacy is a murder-suicide pact. It's a collective murder-suicide pact. Millions of people have been killed since the Civil War. That's a good example of it. 600,000 people killed to uphold, you know, white supremacy. These are grunts, these are people, working class people. While the planters' children are partying in Richmond. Everybody looked some of the local newspapers, read some of the newspapers at the time. They say everybody's having a party in Richmond. All these poor guys are getting murdered on the battlefield. So finally, this is interesting. Huh? Finally, Robert E. Lee said we're going to have black troops because we're getting killed out here in the battlefield. So finally, they just suspended this white supremacy amendment because they were getting their butts kicked. So they said we have to have some black slaves. So they asked the planters, and you know the planters said, pay us. They didn't care, you know, because after the Civil War, they got it all back.
Right.
You know, they didn't care. So the white working class suckers, you know, are going along with this so-called, what I call intellectual dog food. Do not remember, and this is something that you won't get at Berkeley High School. I'm sure if you bring this up, the teachers say, well, what? You know, they never heard of it. You know. In the 1880s, there was an alliance between blacks and whites. People say, why did Jim Crow come about? This alliance between black and white working class brought the city of New Orleans to a standstill. Nothing could move. This is happening all over the South. But 1% of the establishment came up with Jim Crow to keep the races apart. Now they don't know that. I teach that in college. They don't, students, they never heard anything about that. They got these establishment historians saying, well, if you want to find a populist precedent for that, you have to go back to Shays' Rebellion. You have to go all the way back to certain, you have to go years, 100 years of labor history, what you were talking about. You know, the prisoners who went on a hunger strike, which led to their getting rid of solitary confinement. They don't talk about that. They have, well, Shays' Rebellion, you know. No. So that's been kept in the white working class. They don't realize that there was an alliance once. They've been taught to hate people whose interests are the same as theirs. And so now we're coming to a head. Now people this morning were watching Meet the Press. They said, we're afraid of what happens if Trump's not elected. Will these people go to the Second Amendment, you know, solution? In other words, will there be a uprising? What would happen in Wyoming? A sheriff there, a brave sheriff, called their bluff. What did they do? They backed down. Remember they talking about overthrowing the government? This sheriff said, no, you don't do it that way. You have to go to the ballot. They backed down. So these clowns, they're not going to go up against the American Armed Forces. that's been integrated since 1948 with black women generals and admirals and stuff like that. So let's get mine. Ran on that, but that's why we miss Alan Willis, who was a socialist. I mean, of course, come on out with it. He's probably communist. Alan Willis, you know that? He's been a little liberal. He's probably communist. He comes out of Chicago.
Absolutely.
He came from Chicago, right?
He preferred Marxist.
Marxist. Of course, Marx didn't use the term communist.
That's right.
But anyway, that's my rant. That's why we miss Alan Willis, because you don't have journalists like that anymore. You have the progressives are just as bad as it was. Now they say, I got a piece coming out tomorrow morning in Common Punch. They say they're gonna stay home if Bernie is not elected. They stayed home in 1968. Hubert Humphrey nearly beat Nixon. He lost to Nixon by 1 point. It was 47 to 47, a little percentage. Okay? You know what, you kids, you don't remember this. He probably too young to remember too. You know what Hubert Humphrey said? You know what Hubert Humphrey said? Hubert Humphrey said that if I lived in the ghetto, I'd start a revolt.
He did say that.
Okay?
No?
Okay? Have you heard a candidate a long time say something? Bill Clinton said something like that. He said, if I lived in the ghetto, I would start a revolt. These clowns stayed home because they didn't get the idealized utopian romantic thing, paradise. If Trump wins, we will bear the brunt of it. Jewish people, I see they don't bring that stuff. I said, why don't the Jewish commentators mention the anti-Semitic responses to Jewish pundits? Now this one woman who came from Russia with her parents, she dared criticize the future first, if Trump wins, his wife. And you can see her butt on, I'm sorry to say this, you can see her butt for free $1, because dollars naked on. I don't want to put it that way, but I mean, you know, Michelle Obama, they call her a monkey, a chimp. She got a lot of class next to that.
Right.
But this guy has more of a threat to Jewish people. This woman, I was going to say, she criticized. They sent her hoaxes like calls from funeral parlors
Hey.
and put the Star David on her. This is Trump's followers. You know, the people in me say, well, it's all about they don't like the establishment. They they don't like what else? The trade deficit and all that. They hide the racism because racism is bad for business. You didn't mention racism. They can't sell their products that way. But this woman complained. Donna Milbank said he got a lot of anti-Semitic mail. Okay, they don't like Muslims. You know, this man talked about this judge. He's Mexican, called man, born in Indiana. He knows what he's doing. Everybody says, oh, it's okay. He knows what he's doing. That people, yeah, you know, around all these people. Okay, so the white progressives are gonna stay home, right? That's 20% said, or something like that. Said they're gonna stay home and either vote for Trump. Okay, they can always melt into anonymity. You know, just like the gays in Nazi Germany when they got real right. What did Mick Jagger say in the movie? He's playing a female impersonator. He came out with a pseudo and said, from now on, call me George. Okay, they can always turn right. Now this last time, Claude McKay, I've been studying. Claude McKay was a black poet. Like James Baldwin. They get these guys and they become proxies to the people who buy books, right? So Claude McKay was a black poet. He was a communist. He went to the Kremlin in 1922. He made a speech criticizing white chauvinism on the left, okay? So they used him to hit the black radicals in Harlem. He was talking about race first. He's talking about class first. The radicals in Harlem talking about race first. Okay, so he was called pseudo-intellectuals, okay? So what happens? He is hired to review a play, okay? He is told to sit up in the balcony. He's got this, I'm going to do this play, I'm going to Broadway. He says, you don't sit down, you sit up in this balcony, okay? His colleagues at the Liberator, this communist magazine, could not feel his pain. They didn't understand what it was all about. So he got all mad and left them. What happened was Max Eastman, his left-wing supporter, started writing for the National Review. He went right.
Yeah.
The Trotskyites, who backed James Baldwin, they became neocons. So the white progressives, they can either melt into the background, They can vote. Look how they praise Rand Paul. Just because he was, what, against the big government or something they agreed with him about Rand Paul. Rand Paul hangs out with people who believe that John Wilkes Booth is a hero. Now, what crackpot is that? Not a crackpot, huh? Who believe that the civil rights, the civil rights bill was wrong. That people should have the right to, bar black people or whatever from their restaurants and from their businesses. So that's what these progressives do. I mean, Joan Walsh, she said I was pernicious. This woman that gets on TV and pretends to be a progressive. She gets on there and says, Joan Walsh is salami. I wrote a piece in the New York Times that said, you can't rely on these people, these progressives. They don't know what it's all about. We have to support Obama. And they were criticizing Obama. They were on Cornell West against Obama. Can you imagine that? Cornell West. What's that guy? Mr. Professor Court? What's that guy that used to be on this comedian who used to play a professor? And he say all kind of, saying all kind of incorrect stuff. He's a black person. Anyway, they're going to run him against Obama. She said I was pernicious for saying that. She's on TV saying, well, Rand Paul, at least he's convinced. We're not going to go for Rand. We're not for Rand Paul, who's still talking about the South won the war or some crazy stuff. So that's the way I'll end it with that. I don't know what we do with the white working class. Not all of them are bigots. I hate that too because they're stereotyping them, right? They're stereotyping them. There's a lot of white working class people vote for Obama. And we're with him.
Absolutely.
There is an element. He's resentful. They all doing heroin. The same stuff that they used to say about us, they said about them. They're lazy, they don't want to work, all this kind of stuff. That's a new line come from the establishment. That these people, one of them said that people would follow National Review. National Review is responsible for Trump because they backed the bell curve that black people self-human can't think, that our IQ is 10% points lower or whatever. This is Scott's Irish guy who wrote this. That's what I always remind me. This is Scott's Irish. Benjamin Franklin says Scott's Irish? White savages. But in order to get like an Anglo upgrade, he has to kick us, right? Okay? His new thing is that the white people are lazy and they're Monahan. Now he's Monahan. He said they're lazy and they having children out of wedlock and on dope and doing heroin and everything. This is National Review. So I don't know how we do it, but there was once an alliance between white and black workers. And somehow, maybe that can occur again. Was that 30-minute wrap? How long?
I just have one more question.
9 minutes.
What would your insight and suggestions be for dismantling white supremacy and unifying people based on revolution and principle of justice and unification?
How do you dismantle white supremacy? Well, I think I think what's happening in civil war in the white community. Some are going to go for diversity, like these kids, like the kids in the high school, the younger generation. Biracial population is rising. We're already biracial. I got Irish people in my family. But for me to go to Irish conferences and say that makes them less white, so they don't want to use that. They work hard to be white. So I think the biracial population is rising, on the rise. And, you don't have to, I think we said the younger generation of the 60s, Elvis Cleveland said, well, they're going to be all right because they can dance. Well, I look at 1920s films. White people can dance, man, in 1920s, they do the Charleston and everything. But I think this time, because of the influx of people from other countries, right? And I'm going to end with this. This is the hope. I came back from Istanbul. When was it? On May 22nd, I came from Istanbul back to San Francisco. In one line, it was mostly white. In the other line, there were Africans, Muslims, mostly Asians, all right? The line of whites, these are people coming to visit the United States. The other line with very few whites, very few black Americans, mostly Asian and other races, Africans, they were United States citizens coming home. So the tide is against the Trump people. The only problem with them is to what extent will they go to hold on, right? That's the only question.
Is there, back to Willis, back to media, back to journalism, and Roger Ailes and Fox.
Right.
The impact that they've had is phenomenal, but it's always been our hope that independent media through the web, through the internet, is part of the savior for us.
Better than nothing.
You know, it's like what, here you go. It's like what that book is, you know, what the other American book is. It came out in the 60s and 70s, which was printed on a tabloid. And that was our internet in the 60s, was the tabloid, because we could print thousands of these things, didn't cost a lot of money, and we could disseminate them to a lot of people. And I think that what we have today in terms of blogs and the internet allows us the ability to continue our voice. Hard to compete with Ailes and these people, and the fact that the audience that we're after isn't going to listen to our blogs.
Yeah, well, it's these millennials, where you can go eat, and, you know, what club, and all this kind of stuff. It's not just them, the black rap, hip-hoppers, that's all they talk about. There's wealth and, you know, expensive cars, and selling weapons. They're selling weapons. You know, every time Lil Wayne comes out to Oakland, 3 people get killed, and the after parties. So, I mean, they got, you know, and the corporations are the ones who sponsor that and insist upon that kind of hip-hop. There's another kind of hip-hop you don't hear very often, but that's the corporate hip-hop. So we had underground press help to stop the war.
That's right.
But now, you know, there are fewer and fewer outlets. What am I going to go to the Nation? Well, I'm going to go to the Nation magazine to find direction, you know, or I'm going to go to the, you know, where I'm going to go.
But we're at a point right now where it can go in either direction in terms of balance, in terms of getting this message out. And I wonder if in 40 years, you know, people will be compiling works that, you know, all of us are creating 50 years from now, you know?
I think the media's going to, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be more accessible. For example, my books don't sell much. I got a few books that have sold for many years. Like next year is the 45th anniversary of a book of mine is still in print, about 4 or 5 months now. People find the nonfiction a little hard to take, you know, because that's when I really, you know, like I'm talking right now. So with Kindle, I can improve my audience. With the new technology, like smartphones and things like that, I can reach audiences all over the world. You know what I'm saying? So there is the new technology, you know, smartphones, Kindles, tablets, and all that, can give you a larger audience, potentially. Can give you a larger audience. So my little magazine that's online, Conch, which we had as a print magazine in 1991, never got tired of lugging those magazines all over the country to sell them. So I went to online, right? The last issue, this brilliant kid in Switzerland, professor, trying to dismantle all this theory stuff. You know, that people don't understand. They get it from the French or whatever. He wrote an article. Somebody in Vienna read it. Not Venice read it. And invited him to a conference in Philadelphia. I couldn't do that with print. But I mean, I'm always surprised about the vastness of the audience.
Global.
Like that, global. So that's the hope. That's the hope, right.
And speaking of hope,
This is my novel.
that's his latest.
Some people call it a novel, but this is my latest.
And how timely. My God.
Oh yeah, well the press is calling up, but it's not gonna last.
What is it from?
Pardon me? It's called The Complete Muhammad Ali. So I'm on Democracy Now! Tomorrow. and also NPR from 8 to 9 our time on what they call, what's the name of that thing? Some show. So, about Ali.
Give a good word for Sonny Liston, okay?
I always do.
Thank you.
I always do. That was a guy, one of 24 children. Father beat him up every day. Wow. He went to live with his mother in St. Louis. She wanted to know why he showed up. Hard life. Okay, I gotta split.
Brother.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
always.
Thank
Okay,
all
you're
you.
always welcome here, man, you know that.
So ask your teachers whether they know about the White-Black Alliance of Labor in the 1880s. You want to bet what they're going to say? Duh. Take care.
Maestro, thank
Let
you.
me use you down.
Okay.
Hey, Paul, I'll talk to you.
Good deal.